Days after a BBC investigation exposed decades of serious sexual abuse allegations against the former Harrods owner Mohammed Al Fayed, earlier today, BBC Breakfast heard testimonies from survivors. They were joined by some of the women who say they were either raped or sexually assaulted by the billionaire businessman while working for the luxury department store. Here is another chance to hear what they had to say, a warning you may find some of their testimony upsetting. First, Ellie Price looks at the story so far.
He was the Egyptian billionaire with links to the highest level of British society. He died without the world knowing the truth.
I woke up startled and he was just there wearing nothing but a silk dressing gown type smoking jacket thing. And he tried to get in the bed with me and I told him, no, I don't want you to. And he proceeded to just keep trying to get in the bed, at which point he was kind of on top of me and really couldn't move anywhere. I was kind of face down on the bed and he just pressed himself on me.
He threw himself on top of me. His hands were all over me and, I was wearing a dress. He was very, very forceful. I, thank God, reacted and kicked him off, ran down the hallway into my room in sheer terror because I just didn't know what would happen.
We will say it plainly, Mohammed Al Fayed was a monster.
Lawyers for his victims say this may be the worst case of corporate sexual exploitation of young women the world has ever seen. Mohammed Al Fayed owned Harrods between 1985 and 2010. In that time, multiple allegations of rape and sexual assault were made, and yet neither the police nor the Crime Prosecution Service were able to bring a case against him. The boss of the CPS during some of that time told Breakfast he had nothing to do with it.
No, it didn't cross my desk. Senior prosecutors take decisions all the time in the Crown Prosecution Service. Hundreds of thousands of decisions are taken every year. So I don't know the details. But certainly I had nothing to do with it.
Since the documentary aired, dozens of people have contacted the BBC to share their experiences. Among them Jessica, not her real name, who told me a manager, who still works for Harrods, failed to investigate when she complained about Al Fayed's inappropriate behaviour. She claims another manager cherry-picked young girls for him.
I feel quite strongly that the people that facilitated it happening also need to be brought to justice, and that is part of the reason why I'm now speaking out about it. Those people, I can see are still working either within the company or in other companies, and I have no doubt they have to have been fully aware of what was happening.
Harrods, under new ownership, says it's appalled by the allegations and has launched a compensation scheme for former employees who say they were attacked by Al Fayed. It also says it's investigating whether any current employees were involved, but has not told us whether anyone has faced any action as a result of that internal review. Mohammed Al Fayed died last year, but many of his victims hope some justice can still be brought. Ellie Price, BBC News.
We are joined here on Breakfast right now by Jen, Nicole, Lindsay, Gemma and Catherine, along with their barrister, Dean Armstrong, and our own correspondent, Ellie Price. Catherine, we're going to start with you this morning. Thank you, all of you, for talking to us. The first thing I think we would say is take your time, because I know you all have difficult, challenging and complicated stories to tell. Catherine, if we could start with you, just tell us what happened.
I was hired in 2005 through an actual formal selection process, and I didn't actually know who I was going to be working for. It was just said to be a high net worth individual, so it was only at the last minute that we discovered who it was going to be for, and I was hired with Nicole behind me. But we never really saw one another. We were kept very much apart. And the first week or so was really humiliating because I had the Harrods attire of a black suit, and he would call me into his office and tell me this doesn't work and this is distracting, and then would rip my buttons open of the front of my shirt. and stuff money into my pocket and tell me to go and buy more suits. And I would come back the next day and repeat it for a week. And then it was, your hair's awful, you need to straighten your hair. Sent me for a lip wax. So by the end of the first week, I was shattered, because this was supposed to be the big new job.
That was the first week?
Yeah. So I ended up with a lot of suits. So, yeah, that was my initial experience. I later travelled to Paris with him, realised I was in danger there because my door didn't lock and had to barricade the door with a suitcase and a chair. And ultimately, he forced himself upon me in his office, and I fought him off and I said, I'm a PA and I'm a PA only, that's all I do. And he said, well, you should have gone to work in the post office then if that's what you wanted. And the next day my desk was gone and I lost my job.
So sorry. Nicole, you mentioned you started work at the same time.
Yes.
and you would like to share your story with us this morning as well.
Yes, so my story is basically very similar start to Catherine. I was brought in from an external recruiter, so not through Harrods, and as a sort of senior executive assistant. And one of the things I really vividly remember in the office was this palpable anxiety that you could really feel. There's like a sort of hum in the air. And people would explain it to me that he was very mercurial, so he would come in and you would never know what you were going to get. You would never know if he was going to be in a good mood, he would be shouting. So every single day, you sort of have this anxiety of, right, what's the day going to bring? How am I going to have to manage this? How am I going to be able to get through the day? And it was a battle to sort of come out the other side smiling. And the awful thing is, I think you'd sort of get used to it. You know, it becomes normal. So, yes, but we did... it was an interesting introduction to working for him. It was difficult.
And Gemma, you'd like us to explain what happened to you, so I'm going to just read this for the people who are watching. You worked as one of Al Fayed's personal assistants between 2007 and 2009. You've told us that you were raped by Mohammed Al Fayed in Paris. You say his behaviour became more frightening during work trips abroad. And it's very often the case, isn't it, Gemma, that even having to say the words again is another trauma. I'm sorry that you even have to hear the words again, because I know it's deeply, deeply distressing for you. But just tell us the impact this period of time has had on your life.
It's something that's probably never going to go away. I think, there's going to be ways we can start to deal with it, cope with it, but ultimately, it feels like Harrods is never going to disappear. And it's something that's it's present in everyday life. And, I think being able to come out and speak about it, although it's rehashing the trauma, it's helpful. These women have been amazing support, and I think we're sort of getting stronger together day by day. But I think it's definitely trauma that's lifelong.
Feel that strength when you walked in together, sort of looking after one another, supporting one another this morning. If we turn to you, Jen, you've decided to waive your right to anonymity for the first time. And you've asked us to explain what happened to you while you were working at Harrods. You say you worked for Mohammed Al Fayed for almost 5 years. You've told us you were subjected to a number of serious sexual assaults and attempted rape. Why is it so important for you to speak this morning?
Well, I think, first and foremost, it's part of the healing process. I have lived with this as a secret that I've been deeply ashamed of for 35 years. I hadn't told a soul. And when this action began a couple of years ago, it offered me the opportunity to perhaps deal with that trauma and begin to heal from the trauma. Initially, I didn't want to be involved because Mohammed was still alive, and as ridiculous as that may sound to people not involved, he still felt like a threat until the moment he died. His death helped me to be able to come forward without fear of any consequences. I've recently been able to tell my family, which has been a huge thing for me. It was something I hope never to have to do, but I have now. And I would like to be able to appeal to anybody else who's been through something like this that hasn't yet come forward. And I'm hoping that in doing what we're doing,